Well, thank you very much for staying with us as we get into the newspapers this morning. We have just a few of them this morning. It's a bit of a barren morning when it comes to the newspapers, but we'll make do with what we have and lots of topical stories to delve into as well. Joining us for that conversation, we have Bobby Banson, lawyer, and a man of many things. He is one who takes no prisoners. Bobby, it's good to have you this morning. I think you'd have to unmute.
I have. Good morning, Ben. I don't know whether that's I should be happy or I should be worried with that description.
I think you should be happy. I think you should be happy. You take no prisoners. You say it as it is. And I think not just in our world today, especially in Ghana, we need people like that who can say it as it is without too much sugarcoating. Because sometimes, we all know what something is, but, we'll try to be too politically correct. I think in this day and age, we need a lot more people who are less politically correct and more truthful to the people generally. So good to have you on board. I think this is the first time we're doing this, right? For the news review.
I think I have once also.
Was it with me?
I should think so, Ben. I should think so.
Okay, then my bad.
I'm always with you.
Then my bad. But anyway, let's go ahead.
With just a comment. There's one of my favorite lines in our national anthem is fearless honesty, right? So whenever these days we don't sing it as often unless the Black Stars are going to play. But if we are reminded of the words of the national anthem, I believe that every Ghanaian would have that sense of responsibility and obligation, not to a political party or to a cult or to a person, but to the nation that our forefathers left for us to build.
And it's really interesting that you went to the national anthem, because the words in there, talking about making our country strong and great, or great and strong, because some people have said it's great and strong, but you have to be strong to be great, and all of that. And even the second stanza, which we never sing, but which is in there. When you look at the import of the wording and how we lead our lives, both as followers and as leaders. Anyway, but let me run these two things by you very quickly. So we have some of those MPs from Qatar returning. And, many people have criticized that whole action. Very recently, Dr. Nyaho Tamaklo, himself a founder of the MPP, came out with his own thinking on parliamentarians and traveling at that point in time. Dr. Kabiru Mahama, who is with the office of the vice president, has shared his concerns, saying the president would be appalled by the fact that the budget had to be debated, and yet we had some of our MPs, in Qatar enjoying themselves. But Mr. President himself also went to support the Black Stars. He was in Qatar. What do you make of that? And when you're done, just the second issue, the matter to do with Section 35(5), when it comes to, I'm sure you know exactly where I'm going, when it comes to the William Atu Essien issue and Justice Bafo in court, and everything that has been said about it in terms of, the state is doing no wrong, this is the way to go in terms of plea bargaining, and others saying no. In fact, the justice of the court disagrees. He says it is not the state that is affected here, it is the bank and the depositors. There are so many thoughts on that. What is your take on these two matters quickly?
Okay, I would want to start with Qatar. And full disclosure, I was in Qatar myself.
Okay, welcome back. You didn't go there on the ticket of the state. I
didn't see any of the parliamentarians. The irony, or maybe if there was no serious business to have been discussed in Parliament, the parliamentarians are human beings. They have a right to follow their passion.
Right.
But you see, they are there. They took an oath of office that required certain obligations of them. They enjoy certain rights as parliamentarians, and they are required to also forgo some of their normal benefits. And one would have thought that at this time where they are asking all of us to tighten our belts, and that is the subject of the discussion on that day, and the persons that they want to be called as the majority in parliament completely abandon the parliamentary work and then go to Qatar. I mean, it may be at their expense. Nobody is saying that it was state-sponsored. But I want to think, at least driving from their homes or offices to the airport, there was an element of state protocol or benefit that they would have as parliamentarians going through the airport security. They didn't go through the airport protocols as normal Ghanaians.
Right.
And so they cannot say that, well, they went with their money, so nobody should question it. Throughout the full length of that journey, definitely there was some benefit that accrued to them because they were ministers or parliamentarians.
Right.
But do you do it at that time? But then again, ask yourself, the president himself was there at that time. And so, okay, you're looking at their leader. If their leader was there at that time, when they were, the Portugal game was when the budget was read.
Right.
Yes. So if the budget was read on the day that the president of the republic was not there, this budget that they have called on all Ghanaians to rally around and support, was his presence in Qatar or the presence of these MPs, was their presence really needed in aid of a national cause?
So that brings me to a point before you continue. There was a president, I've just forgotten, but he was offered the opportunity to be in Qatar. I think his country was playing. If memory serves, it's an African president. I would have to check again. And he said, no, my country has crucial issues we're dealing with, and this wouldn't be the time to go and support my team. I don't know whether it was Ecuador or something, but he turned down the opportunity and said that he wished the team the best, but he wasn't going to be there because he had more pressing issues to deal with in his country. And then again, you put that side by side with the MPs. Look, we've had at different times 37 MPs, majority MPs. So that's 137 and only 37 are showing up. Yeah. I think the last time, was it yesterday or 2 days ago, there were 30 of them, even less. And I think 28 from the minority. What picture does that paint? Looking at where we are and looking at the attendance in Parliament.
Well, you know, I think the last weekend or the weekend before, they all went to, is it Akosumbo or somewhere like that, to discuss the budget. And that had a lot more attendance than, I mean, when they went away to relax to discuss the budget, than the actual business itself that is being done in Parliament that we are paying them for. And these are people that we voted to represent us. And you will not see them during the discussion. But when it comes to the voting, you would see all of them coming there. Even those that did not participate in the discussion, even those that are sick, would be wheeled into, so that they, simply because they want to have the majority to pass. It makes mockery of this whole idea of democracy as we are practicing it. Is it that we are putting people there to take advantage of the state resources, and when it becomes necessary, as crucial as this very, very budget that it's almost do and die for our economy, people just decide not to take it serious? Is it because they know, oh, whatever happens, we will pass it as it is? And so they will not fully participate in it, just appear to then vote. It's interesting, but that is the price of democracy, and we will have to abide by it.
All right. So before you get into the Atuesian bit, let me just start with the Finder newspaper, because that's one of the major stories in there. So the headlines in the Finder: Atuesian to pay 32.5 million Ghana cedis as reparation and restitution, and interest on 57.5 million Ghana cedis. There's also NSS to upskill personnel into great nation builders. That story on page 4. Unfortunately for me, when I hear some of these things, yes, positive, but we do a lot of talking in this country and very little walking of the talk. Alan asks people of Hohoi to back government's recovery efforts. That is Alan Chermanting. There's also 1,525 pass out under YEA's Community Police Assistance Module. Petrosol adjudged Energy Company of the Year in Petroleum category, and support debt exchange to save economy. Uforiata appeals to Ghanaians investors, and offer expires December 19, but may be extended. So let's start with the story on page 4. The story is there, and maybe we'll take a look at the debt exchange program as well. Let's quickly get to page 4. So, documents cited by the finder indicate that former chief executive of defunct Capital Bank, William Atuesian, has agreed to pay 32.5 million Ghana cedis as reparation, interest, and restitution on the 57.5 million Ghana cedis. On that 90 million Ghana cedi principal, this will bring the total payment of principal as well as reparation, restitution, and interest to 90 million Ghana cedis. Now, the 90 million Ghana cedis consists of 27.5 million Ghana cedis allocated to business promotion, 30 million Ghana cedis, which prosecution said could not be accounted for, and 32.5 million Ghana cedis as reparation, restitution, and interest. Essien is standing trial with Reverend Fitzgerald Odonko, a former managing director of Capital Bank, and Tetinete, MD of MC Management Services, a company allegedly owned by Essien. These accused persons, just to wrap, were said to have misappropriated 622 million Ghana cedis in liquidity support offered by the Bank of Ghana to Capital Bank. Bank of Ghana and the receiver are said to have recovered a large chunk of the money, with 57.5 million Ghana cedis being the outstanding amount yet to be recovered. So, I know you followed this case, and people have asked if it was 620 million, why are we now looking at 90 million? This explains part of it. A chunk of it has been recovered, and these are the outstanding sums. But there's been a lot of talk, Bobby Banson, the judge in question. 3 years, the options were always on the table. 3 years down, right at the dead of the ruling, we hear Atuesian's, counsel coming through, and this is the option they're trying to trigger. Justice Bafwa has not been enthused. He's made his comments clear. Do you think he overdid it, maybe in a way making clear where his ruling would go? And what do you make of this entire matter in terms of the AG's department willing to give him these options?
Well, I think we should applaud the judge.
Justice Bafwa.
Yes, it is judges like this that we should hail. This is my reason. The judge sits there and he owes an allegiance not to the AG's department. His allegiance is to the state. He's there to interpret the law and apply it, even if the AG proposes the law to him or the AG does not propose the law to him. Now, you charge somebody or three persons, right, for misappropriating 600 and something million. You charge them. I believe, and I stand to be corrected, that one of the charges or the counts is conspiracy, because they put all three of them there, right? Now, you go through a whole trial where the accused persons, or let me narrow it down to Mr. Essien, has pleaded not guilty, has testified, cross-examined. The judge has gone through his proceedings, and about to deliver judgment. And then you come and say that, you have reached an agreement with him to pay a certain amount of money. Now, remember that session, they didn't come under the Plea Bargain Act, which has been passed. They came under that session. Now, in the judge's interpretation, that session would only be invoked if the direct victim of the alleged offense is the state. However, the monies that these persons are being accused of misappropriating are deposited funds. And remember that 600 million or whatever that is being quoted, remember that 2 or 3 years ago, the government refunded those monies to the depositors. And so it's you and I, our tax money, that have been used to refund these monies to the depositors that these three persons are alleged to have misappropriated.
Yes, but quickly, I spoke to Tia Yabua yesterday, and the deputy AG, and he makes mention of the fact that, look, yes, initially it was that way, but that has all been consolidated into the Bank of Ghana and all of that. So we're now talking the state here. That is what we're looking at. Do you disagree with him?
No, but at what point was that changed? Because the judge would deal with the charge sheet, the facts of the case that was presented to him. And so if in the course of the proceedings, the facts have changed in terms of the consolidation. Was the charge sheet amended? Or were the facts that were led before the judge amended? I do not doubt that that may have happened. But the judge would deal with the documents that were filed by the Attorney General's Department, the witness statements. Did they amend those witness statements or the facts or the charge sheets to reflect these new developments with the consolidation so-called?
In any case, case, Lawyer Bobby Banton, I'm sorry, I'm interjecting.
Oh, it's fine.
The state came in, intervened on behalf of the ordinary Ghanaian, right? I mean, these are our leaders, and their actions are on our behalf. Now, the state has made certain payments to these depositors, right? So
yes.
now it's the state that has taken on this issue, and whatever happens should go to the state. Is that correct? Or is that erroneous?
Like I'm saying, I have no doubt if that is the current position in terms of the facts, in terms of the state's rule. But the question that I'm asking is, when they went to court first, when they filed the charge sheet, when they filed the witness statement, is that what was narrated to the judge? Or the documents that are before the court now, do they bear these facts? Because from what he's saying, these are developments that came perhaps after the matter had started. So if the facts before the judge, as at the time they came under that section 35.2, did not reflect the submissions that they were making, then perhaps they would have to amend the processes that had been filed to form the basis of this new submission. But be that as it may, nobody is against the idea or the process of the refund. It is the optics. One, the law says that before that process is gone through, the accused person must plead guilty. And so they had gone through a trial where the accused person has not pleaded guilty. Now, if they now say that the accused person has agreed to refund, they must now go back, amend the plea, take a new plea, and then they will take it from there. So it's not as if, as they sought to do, that once they filed the so-called terms of settlement, for lack of a better word, then the judge's hands are tied. They must go through a whole procedure. Now, the other question that remains is that, like you said, there were 3 persons who were charged, and there were elements of conspiracy, I want to think so, in the process.
Right.
Yes. Now, if you want to say only one person is pleading guilty, and so refunding the rest, the money, what about the rest?
I spoke to Tiayabo about that yesterday, and he said, well, there were cards on the table for the others if they wanted to trigger the options, because you know that for some of them, there are other angles to the conversation when it comes to the crimes that have been committed, for which if they were to admit guilt, the consequences could be pretty different. So, but the point he was making was that in the end, the options are available to all 3 of them, and depending on their admission of guilt or otherwise, then we'll see the way forward. For some of them, it may not simply be coughing up some sum of money. That's basically the point. But it's also...
But Ben,
in go ahead.
Procedure, I don't know, I stand to be corrected, whether it is sustainable to charge 3 persons with abetment or conspiracy, and then let one person off the hook, whether the charge can be sustained against the rest.
Right. And that was why yesterday when I also spoke to Yunus Hussaini, he was asking, I mean, he was not pointing fingers at anybody, but he suggested that, who knows, there could be collusion between the AG's department, I mean, that's a stretch, the AG's department, and whichever individual who stood to gain. He put that out there. I pinned him down that, look, are you suggesting? And he said, well, it's not an impossibility. Do you find it surprising that we've got to this point? Because mind you, the AG and the deputy have always pushed for getting something for Mother Ghana. And the point they have made is that in the past, we have people, you know, go to jail, come back and enjoy their booty, so to speak. So in this instance, we're getting money back for the state. But people are also saying the optics, like you rightly said, the justice of the court has said it would be fostering crime in a way, making it attractive. Do you agree with him on that score?
You see, that argument about it was either you get money or the person goes to jail, it's not true.
Right.
The Criminal Procedure Act gives the judge the discretion that in addition to custodial sentence,
exactly,
the judge has a right to order recovery of the money. So it is not as if it is either you go to jail or you pay the money, and so the state must choose one option. No, the judge has the discretion and the jurisdiction to say that in addition to going to jail, I am ordering that you cough up X amount of money that you have taken from the state.
Right.
So why didn't they give the judge that option?
Right. But in the end, it still lies with the court. And like Chiayabwa said yesterday, they have proposed this. They have, as representatives of the state, they have accepted this as of now, but it is left to the justice of the court to determine whether the case will end here with that approval given or it will progress with his ruling. So in the end, the buck still stops at the doorstep of the court and Justice Bafo.
Well, yes, the law gives him the discretion on the facts. If he thinks that the so-called arrangement is not supported by the facts, that is what the law says, that were presented before him, he has a right to refuse it. But I would doubt if he would have or he would want to exercise that discretion to refuse it, because then people would want to think that he has personalized the situation. And so even though he has that discretion, he can only suggest to the state that, listen, you would have to come back and then give me a better proposal that I think will be supported by the facts, so that it will make my work easier. If I want to accept it, then your settlement must be supported by the facts. That is what the law says. But if I will not accept it because it is not supported by the facts, then the judge would then, if he decides to find the accused persons guilty, he would then decide to say, okay, I am giving you a custodial sentence, but I'm also ordering you to refund X amount of money. But then the question still remains, Ben, is that what happens to the other two persons?
Right.
Whether a judge, when 3 persons are charged with crimes such as in the form of conspiracy or abetment, one person can be left off the hook. And on those same facts, the other 2 can be sentenced or tried. I'm not sure if it will work out that way. So it's still interesting. It will be a very good precedent. The judge it's somebody who really believes in the law as he knows it. And I don't think that he's subject to any form of influence or intimidation as people may think. If he feels strongly that the facts do not support the so-called settlement, and then he wants to go ahead with his judgment, then trust me, that judge would go ahead.
So basically, just to wrap on this in some 30 seconds, you find it surprising in this instance because it would be setting quite a precedent. 3 people, and in fact, the prime person involved in this is Atuesian. The others are, A2 and A3. So A1 gets to walk away, supposedly, and what happens to the others? That's the question on everyone's mind. But Chiayabwa, when I spoke to him, Alfred, yesterday, spoke about the fact that the deputy AG, we may not necessarily need jail time for this person once he's giving, these sums of money to the state. But let's say in quarter 1 of 2023, he has to pay 20 million. If he fails to do that, then they can trigger the appropriate, options, clauses, and then he could do some jail time on the back of that. What do you make of that? Just very quickly so we can move on to other stories.
If you enter into this form of settlement and the person defaults, you cannot jail him. You have to execute it like a civil action, a civil judgment. So if you agree to spread the payment and he defaults, even though it is in a criminal matter, the Supreme Court has said in the form of bail bonds, you cannot jail the person because you have agreed to recover money. So the court cannot say that in default you should go to jail. No, it is your settlement. It now constitutes a contract between you and Atuesian. So even though it started as a criminal matter, once you put that settlement there and the court adopts it, it constitutes more or less like a contract. If he defaults, I want to think that the only option available to the state is to execute it like any civil judgment. And in civil judgments, if the court says you should pay 5,000 cedis, and then you are not able to pay, you do not go to jail. If you don't have resources, if you don't have the assets to be levied and attached, you will walk free. And that is my fear. If they say now that he should pay 20 million now, 10 million tomorrow, and touch wood, he falls or he dies, or tomorrow he's declared bankrupt, we have lost. We cannot go and start another criminal trial against him. It constitutes a civil matter. if he doesn't have assets to be attached and levied, we do not have any criminal option again.
So there are serious risks that we are taking by going down this road.
Exactly the point. Exactly, and that was what I think the judge was communicating, that the optics are not good. If somebody steals a goat in the village, and then the judge says, because you see, the reason behind criminal prosecution is not only for recovery, but also to serve as a deterrent to other persons.
Right.
And so where is the element of deterrence, especially when a lot of political meal was made out of this banking cleanup? Right. And we all heard that the persons that are responsible will be punished. Is this the punishment that we were promised? That you take the money, you go and work with it, and then you will come and pay back in installments? Then everybody who can do that and later come back and come and listen. The amount of money that the state has lost in this prosecution, the investments by the state, who is quantifying them? Is Mr. Tuesian going to pay the state for all this? I think that if we go this way, it's a bad precedent.
Bad precedent. And of course, we can't even forget those who lost sums of money, those who committed suicide, those who died, those whose families have been left out on the back of, all of these challenges and the banking collapse. Anyway. But like I said, Ben, it is not the case that it is either he goes to jail or refund the money. He can go to jail and still refund the money. So we should not be told as if this is the better option. He refunds the money and we have. No, he can do both. So why not pursue both? Let's wrap with the final newspaper. 2 quick stories. NSS to upskill personnel into great nation builders. And the National Service Scheme has unveiled a plan to hone the skills of 6 personnel to under 6 modules and make them employable. Again, we have quite a number of modules being spoken of, just as we had under NAPCO. Well, in this instance, the modules are NSS in teaching, housing and construction, micro, small and medium enterprises, accounting aid, IT solutions, data and research projects, as well as support for the Ministry of Tourism, Creative Arts and Culture. And of course, the executive director of the NSS, Osei Sibe Entry, unveiled the plan in Accra at the minister's media briefing. But moving away from there, support debt exchange to save economy. And government is seeking overwhelming support of bondholders for the newly launched domestic debt exchange program, since the success of what it calls necessary endeavor depends on the cooperation of the public. Now, the debt restructuring, which is expected to deal with high interest payments on the public debt, is part of a 4-legged approach adopted by the government in 2023 budget aimed at alleviating the pressures on the national budget and restoring debt sustainability. So as we know it, T-bills are not going to be affected, but some bondholders are going to be affected, and some are going to take haircuts, like it or not, between now and 2037, depending on what you're holding and what the dynamics are. Pensioners and their coupons are going to be affected. And you look at diverse areas. Insurance, for example, people have started seeing tiers 2 and 3 insurance companies reaching out over different things. What is your take on this, especially as it is tied to an IMF program? Quick thoughts on that.
Then, this is the government telling us that we are broke. We are broke to the bone. Fair enough. We will not go into the history. Let's move forward. If we are broke, you are asking the public to take haircuts, or as it's called it. But the government expenditure, which is the highest or one of the largest expense item in the budget, there was nothing about reducing it. If we are that broke, why still keep all those ministers? For me, it's not fair for them to come to us, the ordinary ones, and say, between now and 2027 or 2037, we are not going to pay you what is due you. But they are not telling us that they are reducing their own expenditure or allowance by 50% or by 60%, or this or that or this, or they are reducing the number of ministers or the benefits that they are getting. Nobody is telling us this. So why should it always be that the people whose taxes are used to fund your expenditure are the ones that will suffer for your actions? It doesn't make sense. It does not.
Right.
So we are not saying that we are not where we are. We are where we are. We have to deal with it. But must we be the only ones who would suffer? That is my question.
Interesting thoughts there. Let's get into the Daily Guide newspaper. Debt exchange will boost confidence. That's according to Governor of the Central Bank, Ernest Addison, Dr. Ernest Addison. Be bold to reshuffle, former President Kufuor says. And he has joined the widespread call on President Akufo-Addo to reshuffle his ministers. According to him, the president should have the confidence to sack or move his ministers from their positions if they are no longer delivering on their mandates. He was responding to a question posed to him by Kweku Sechi-Addo when he hosted the Institute of Economic Affairs at his Peduase residence. Then, let's support government to rebuild economy. That's the TUC. And NDC rejects debt restructuring. That story is on page 6. Just a quick look at that. The opposition NDC MPs have rejected the government-led effort to restructure the country's debts, threatening to block the deal in Parliament. Now, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta announced that the government intended to replace existing domestic debt with 4 new bonds, which would, like I said, mature in 2027, 2029, 2032, and 2037 as part of that $3 billion IMF program. Quick reactions: reshuffling, removing, and of course, the NDC saying, once it's like this, we're not in support of your debt restructuring.
Well, with the reshuffling, the last time the president responded to those calls, he said those who do that, maybe they are looking for jobs. I don't know whether he would think that the ex-president is still looking for a job, or perhaps looking for a job for his people. I think that the president's decision not to deal with persons that are obviously not delivering, it's something that will remain unanswered by well-meaning Ghanaians. I would want to leave it as it is. The second thing about the minority saying that they will not approve it. You see, Ben, I've had in the past high expectations and high hopes of the minority. A lot of the things they said they would do, they will not pass certain ministers, they will not pass certain bills. Then on the night before, you don't know what happens. They always pass it. I will not have any expectation of what they will do. They say they will do until they actually do it, unfortunately. So I hope that they carry out their threats, for lack of a better word, and then do what they say that they will do. Other than that, it will just be one of those things. They say they make a lot of noise, a lot of arguments. Then the night before, we don't know what happens. They pass it.
Right. The graphic business now. Debt swap remain calm. Banks, pension fund managers to customers. And look, Bobby, even yesterday, I was having an interaction with someone. A lot of people are concerned. A lot of people are panicking. And I think there should be a lot more education to prevent that, which is good for the banks and pension fund managers to come out and come clean on what exactly. But I'm sure it's touchy-feely. They're also finding out how exactly things will go. I've been to a place where I bank, and I've had my own concerns about some things I've been told. But anyway, banks and pension fund managers have appealed to their customers to remain calm as they work with the government to fine-tune mitigation measures against potential spillovers from the debt exchange program. The Ghana Association of Bankers and the Chamber of Corporate Trustees told the graphic business in separate interviews that while they expected the exercise to affect their operations, they were convinced that appropriate risk absorbers would be instituted to cushion their players against unlikely losses. As of August this year, banks had about 81 billion Ghana cedis of their assets invested in all government securities, while the corporate, let me just continue, that story continues on page 6. So while the corporate trustees, which manage the tiers 2 and 3 of pension contributions had invested about 25 billion Ghana cedis of their funds in the government paper. So you're looking at 25 billion for tiers 1 and 2 invested in government papers, and then you're looking at some 81 billion Ghana cedis from the banks. Put that together, you get some 106 billion Ghana cedis that could be affected. But they are calling on investors to stay calm. Let me tie in Economy Times, which says Ghana's balance of payment deteriorates, records 3.4 billion deficit, and Ghana's balance of payment deficit has continued to worsen, recording a 3.410 billion deficit at the end of September 2022, compared with only 510 million balance of payment surplus in December 2021. Inflation expectations high. That's according to the Bank of Ghana, and government to shift focus to fiscal stability and IMF support. Quick thoughts on this. So our balance of payment has just got worse from 510 million to 3.4 billion. You can look at the different dynamics there. And the banks and pension fund managers are saying, take a chill pill, don't overreact. Quick reactions?
Well, they've not, they said they are now going to discuss the how to make sure that we do not suffer. I mean, in the past 10 years, it's been lots of ups and downs for persons who have had money in banks or in with these investors. We cannot take a chill pill when so if you have your money and they are telling you you've lost it, I mean, they can quote all the verses in First Samuel, you know, until you have your money in your hands, you will still panic. And so telling us that, oh, don't panic, I think it's a bit of understating the effect of what is actually happening. I think they should come up with a specific, tangible roadmap that would make sure that we will be cushioned against some of these things. Because they have happened, and we saw it coming. They were warned, they were told that we will get here. They kept telling us we will never get there. We will not get there. Now we are here. You are still telling us that we should chill. We cannot chill. We cannot chill. So they should give us tangible, concrete measures, of course, supported with Bible scriptures or Quran scriptures, as they always do, to calm tempers down. And let's see how it will go.
All right. So the very final bit before we go. The Chronicle. Volta is my second home, Alan Chamating says so. We won't accept 1.4 billion Ghana city contingency vote. That's according to the minority. What I want you to react to, fuel prices tumble at pumps, but transport unions are mute. But they've also come to say that, look, it shot up by so many times and we had to adjust. Now it's fallen by a bit and you think because of that we have to adjust immediately. And then the Daily Dispatch says, censure motion against Ken Ofori-Atta majority will not support minority to succeed. That's Deputy Majority Leader Afenyo Markin saying so. Quick reaction to that story on fuel prices, and it's a wrap.
Well, I agree with the transport unions. It's not fair to expect that with the drops, they should immediately. Remember, what constitutes their expenses, not only the fuel that they buy, spare parts and whatever. So I think that we should give them that room as well. Because when there are increases, we do not ask them to immediately increase. It takes time. And so I think it's only fair. With the majority's decision not to support the censure motion, posterity will judge all of us. We were promised that we should allow the finance minister to read the budget, and after they are going to, have him removed.
But I think technically it was also to include the debate, appropriations and all of that.
Yes, but what I'm saying is that it's no longer the talk. I doubt if any action will be taken after all these appropriations, all of these things. Right. He's launching another scheme, which is independent of the budget reading. Maybe we will be told, and this scheme is up to 2037, maybe we will be told he's the only one that has the blueprint for the debt exchange program. So we should allow him to finish it. Posterity will judge us, Ben.
Lawyer Bobby Banson, thank you so much for joining us this morning. You see why I said that you take no prisoners. You indeed take no prisoners. Thank you for joining the conversation. Lawyer Bobby Banson sharing his thoughts.
Thank you, Ben, for having me.
In the news review. So that is it for the news review now. Up next, we'll serve you sports. A lot more action happening in the Mondial. And of course, we know France will be facing off with England. And we have some mouth-watering clashes that happened yesterday. Japan ousted by Croatia. And, of course, Brazil also thumping their South Korean opponents. More for you in sports coming up next.